there. I'm Samantha Rush. I am founder of Marvellous Women Cards and also the host of this wonderful podcast, if I do say so myself. My guest on this episode of Marvellous Women, the podcast, is Lana Johnston. And Lana talks to us in this episode about how we all wear so many different hats and how to wear them well. Welcome to Marvellous Women, the podcast. On this episode, we have the fabulous Lana Johnston joining us. Welcome, Lana.
Thank you, Samantha. Great to be here. It's a Friday, my favorite day of the week.
Indeed, indeed. So tell us on this wonderful Friday, who are you? Who is Lana?
Who am I? I wear many hats. I actually had a post about this probably a few months ago, and I keep coming back to that, thinking of the hats that we wear over our lives. There's and I think the other thing with that is it's the ones you put on and you take off, and the ones that you put on more regularly. But asking me about who I am. So whilst, yes, I am many things, I think the way I would answer that is my grounding really is in two key things, and that is connection and that is leadership. And it's funny how it can take you so many years to really consolidate your thinking into that's where my grounding is. That's where I've spent my whole career and my whole life, be it at work or at home. And that's where I want to play to right now. Which is really, it's quite fascinating in the process of how did I even get to that? These are my strength spots, I guess. Starting right back from when I was a little girl, actually, Samantha, you think about my parents. I talk a lot about my family. I think, they play such an important part in people's lives, good and bad, and so many different things. But I had a dad that was, strong leader, strong coach, strong mentor. I had a mum that could walk into any room and navigate the crowd, put up with my dad and his very big personality. And seeing that right from day one with them, I feel like I had no other choice than to step into that sort of leadership spot myself and love it. And I had really good mentors for what both of those things, leadership and connection, can look like, and how they are so important for the good and for the not so good.
So I'm keen to know, what does connection mean for you? Because I think that can mean a lot of different things to different people. And in a way, connection is a form of leadership. It's just it's a specific lens on connection. What does connection mean to you? And, you kind of talked about that it's something that, yes, there's a process where you kind of come to this realization, but when you look back, you've always had it. So I'd love to hear about what does connection mean for you, and when did you realize that it was an important thing for you? Or that it was something you wanted to spend your life focusing on?
Yeah. So I can definitely say at the start of, and really through my 20s and 30s, it was just something I did and didn't necessarily label it as such. So connection for me, and yes, you are right, it's a really big part of good leadership, or leadership generally, because it can be done badly as well. But connection for me, it starts with the listening piece and the awareness piece and what is going on around you. I have learned over time that in order to do that in the best way, you need space, you need boundaries, you need intention. So the pace that we all tend to jump ourselves into and keep running with doesn't allow enough space and enough time really to see what is going on. And when you can see that, you can find your opportunities to either make more of an impact for yourself, to learn yourself, to help someone else, whatever that might be. So lots of that in the workplace would definitely be my grounding, and the managing up components of connection with your leaders and how you're helping them, but then also with your own teams, how you turning up as the best leader you can be. And then now the work that I'm doing with families on connection within families and with aging loved ones.
So multifaceted.
Yeah, sorry.
No, no, but it is, and it's such a human thing, that connection. There's something that you were saying there, and I'm wondering if you have this as a motto, and if you don't, you should think about it. Pace to allow space.
I love it. And no, I don't. But yeah, awesome.
Yeah, create a pace to allow space. I like that.
Yeah. And actually you could probably flip that, give space to allow pace,
Ooh, I
which
like
maybe is
that.
even more powerful because you really can't be your best unless you're giving allocated time to reflect.
Mm,
I talk a lot with people when I'm coaching about retrospectives and
yeah.
how important it is. And, people, I'll get executives to show me their diaries and it's just a pattern of colors or, it's full. And when you actually force them to allocate time for planning, for sitting, for thinking, I have this really,
Probably for going to the bathroom. I know I used to have to do that back in my exec days. Yeah,
yeah,
you literally have to put time in your diary to go to the bathroom. How ridiculous is that?
yeah, that is insane. I do this whole, see, I've got my piece of paper here too. Smiley
Yeah,
face, sad face, question mark. It's
yeah.
just simple. And I try and do that process, whether it's formally on paper or I'll just do it in the car or on the bus on the way home. What went well for me? What didn't go so well for me, where I can get some learnings and make some
Mm,
changes? And actually, what are the questions I've still got that I haven't solved for, which almost as, in the workplace becomes your to-do list or your next list or your
yeah,
priorities. So,
yeah,
yeah, I like the space for pace.
yeah. Space for pace. Yeah, there's something in there. There's something in there.
All right.
I think that's, it's catchy, but also it's very, we both kind of interpreted it slightly differently.
Yep.
But I think that's the beauty of connection, is that we both connected with that same message in a slightly different way.
Yep.
Lana, I'd
Oh,
love to go back to that idea of hats. And I have some questions. You talked about we wear lots of different hats, and
yeah.
all of us wear very different hats. I'm keen to know what other hats you wear,
Hmm.
and maybe what new hats you've had to learn to put on, and what old hats you've had to take off. And I've kind of got this image of someone with like 20 baseball caps all piled on top of each other.
100%. I always think of Edward de Bono and his, six thinking hats, and I'm pretty sure the visual or the front cover is, multiple different colored hats above
That's
him.
where I've got it from then. I've
Yeah.
appropriated from somewhere else.
Yeah, and that's great, isn't it? But of course, with so many things, we take our own versions of that. And so hats for me, oh, okay, I'm going to try and unpick the various questions you had. One that I have taken off that I'm not using at the moment is the caregiver hat. So very personal. My dad died about 7 years ago, and
Mm.
a lot of my work with my book actually is around that caregiving and sandwich juggle that many of us go through at this point in our lives where we have children, we're trying to run our careers and
Yes.
be successful in our careers, and then we
And
have our age
lives,
and
and
lives.
just, be a
Yes.
good human. And
Yes, yes. And we want to do the right thing by our aging loved ones,
mm,
however that can look. So I have taken off that caregiver hat. My mum is still with us. She's super healthy, and I hope not to have to put that one on again for a little while.
yeah.
So that would be one. Obviously the hat for as a mother and a parent, that I really do think you dial that up throughout your life, and you need it more at sometimes than others. Um, yeah, that I think in the workplace, I quite often like the thinking of, or actually maybe even when I go into a boardroom, I know the role that I need to play as a board member in that particular environment. So I can almost visualize myself going, this is who Lana is today in this scenario or this meeting.
Mm,
It really helps me to set up for how I need to show up, what people are expecting of me, and also how do I contribute in the best way. I think early on in my career, I really could have done with more of that thinking, more of that very deliberate and intentional planning for if I'm going to be the best that I can be, I need to be more intentional. So I'm far better at that now. Yeah. So there are a couple. Is that enough?
Yes, yeah. Look, I will pick up whatever you're putting down, Lana. There's no is this right? I really just want to ask a question about this concept of putting on hats and taking away hats and putting on specific hats for specific things.
Mm.
How does that line up with being your authentic self? So that idea of today Lana's playing the role of the board member. Today Lana's playing the role of the caregiver. Today Lana's playing the role of the parent. How do you align and make sure that every one of those is an authentic representation of you so
Yeah.
that you can actually bring your best self? Because I think if the hat you're putting on is too tight or too big, you're not going to feel like you can really just give your best. So how do you
Yeah.
how do you find that alignment?
Oh, okay.
Just a small
This is
question.
this is a great question. Not one that anyone has asked me and not one that I have necessarily thought through, but let's roll with it.
I love that.
Um, I mean, I still think you're the same person, aren't you? The hat is just the scenario that you are in, and I like to think of it as more of an intentional choice. Maybe in the
Mm,
same way you get dressed every day, you're still the same person, but you choose what you want to wear, how you want to look, and I guess in these scenarios, how you want to perform at your best. I quite like what you said about it, maybe sometimes the hat is too big, or maybe sometimes the hat is too small, because that is reality.
yes, it is.
Yeah, and so for me, then it would be a case of an awareness that is so, and
Mm,
knowing that this is my toolkit or my armory or the things that I can pull out to help me in that scenario. Yeah.
mm.
And I am a really big fan too of we over time, we build our toolkits and we
Yes.
forget we've got these amazing toolkits that we can continue to draw on. And it's one of the things I absolutely talk about in my book as well. We learn so much in workplaces. It doesn't matter whether it's corporate or family business or wherever it is. You learn these amazing capabilities, and
Yes.
sometimes we forget. You can use that at home with your families. You can delegate. You can be a leader in your family group. You can, be the one that ensures communication is clear. You can be the one that does the connection points that maybe others don't.
Mm.
So yeah, I think really dialing up that consideration for the capabilities and the toolkits and things that will help you along. Yeah.
And I'm just thinking about the hat metaphor and actually thinking about how can we take that a little bit further, that if the hat's too tight, you can actually probably make it a little bit bigger. If the hat's too loose, you can probably do something to make it a little bit tighter to fit around you.
Yep.
And I think the other thing is sometimes if you have to put on a tight hat, just set yourself a boundary on how long am I going to wear this tight hat for? Because at some point
Mm.
it's really going to start hurting my head.
Yep.
And I think that, I love metaphor. And I think that sometimes you can kind of, oh yeah, here she goes again with her metaphor. But I think it's really powerful in a
Mm.
way for you to think about, um, this simple thing that you said at the beginning of this chat about, we wear many hats as humans. And actually, that's just a massive area of, possibility, but also, how can I frame and support me to be my best just with this concept of wearing hats
Yeah. Yeah. I love metaphors too, actually, because they make things real.
and
And
relatable.
yes, and hearing you talk in that way, I mean, it's even in the workplace, there are times where you're fronting an audience and your role and the hat you're putting on is clarity, it's direction, it's
Mm,
inspiration. But actually
mm,
you might, and I know for me as a HR professional, you can run from one scenario to another and they can be totally different. But,
Yes.
you could come out of a powerful presentation and maybe you then have to step into a one-on-one conversation with someone that's had personally terrible news. And that hat isn't going to serve you in this scenario.
No.
That's when you're drawing on your empathy and your listening and your potentially some problem solving for whatever the person might need in that right now space. So I've always really liked that idea of, okay, it's not do I need to change myself in every scenario? No, I'm
Mm.
still me, but what are the things that I need to draw on for this scenario?
So here's a question for you then.
Can't wait.
So you described a situation where I've gone from a really successful presentation, perhaps into a one-on-one, a kind of performance discussion.
Maybe?
When you take off one hat and you put on another one, sometimes you get hat head really badly. Um, how do you ruffle your hair to get rid of the hat hair so that
Yeah,
you can actually put on the new hat and have it fit well when you're
yeah,
kind of really moving between these vastly different scenarios and kind of almost like it's like the palette cleanser between courses but within hats.
yeah.
How do you do that?
I
Now
love
I'm
this.
mixing metaphors.
No,
Apologies.
this is great. Who would have thought we'd be having a conversation about hats? This is wonderful.
Ah.
I 100% my head straight away jumped to the third space. So Dr. Adam Fraser, he is actually in Brisbane, and I mean I have his book. I followed his work, but I love his concept or talking or he talks about the third space, and it is a practice and you do have to practice it. So again, in most of my work I talk about small steps, give things a go, and with repetition you get better at things and you get more skilled in the way that you use it. So I do have an example of someone, and it's so funny because it just fits hats and messy hair. But they actually, between meetings, because you often when they were having to flip between meetings, it would be in an elevator. And so that was the time when they would bring out their comb. This isn't a word of a lie. And they would comb their hair in the elevator, and then they would walk out, and they would be the next, you know,
Next
ready
version
for
of
the
themselves.
next, yes, ready for the
Yeah.
next scenario. So I think again, it's finding what works for you. Like not everyone's going to want to comb for their hair. But whatever that is, it's a transition period in between one scenario and another. That is the third space. And however you set that up as a practice for yourself. But there's lots of
Mm.
good ideas in there, but I'd encourage people to have a look at Dr. Adam Fraser's work.
And I think that concept that we talked about earlier in terms of making space,
Yes.
how do you make the space to be able to put in those little rituals or those techniques that can help you, wash it out or comb it out
Yeah. Yeah.
before you move into the next thing so that you can actually get back within yourself and put your mind back into it's almost like putting your mind back into neutral so that you can then push into God, there's another metaphor. There's metaphors all over the place. It's a metaphor apocalypse. Um, being in neutral before you push into first.
Yeah.
So I think, you're absolutely right. You need to make the space to be able to do that. And
Yeah.
having
Yeah.
ritual is a really easy way to do that. You start doing something really simple, small, you start repeating it, it starts to become a ritual, a positive ritual.
Correct.
Is a really great suggestion. I love it.
Yeah, I think it's about this deliberate, and until you have a skill, it's small steps. Again, it's something I talk about a lot. Small steps done repeatedly builds either capability or it builds experience or it builds memorable moments. That's my
Mm,
my other thing. But I think until you have that and it becomes totally naturally, it's about planning.
mm,
So, it is hard. I'll start coaching someone and often people are looking for what's the gold nugget? Come on, what's the thing that's going to fix this for me? I very rarely find or uncover one gold nugget. I think it's multiple things it's repetition, and it's sticking with something. So I think anything to do with space has to be through planning, great rhythms such as diary management. You generally know what's coming in your day, so you can generally plan for a day. And then you'll have some stuff thrown in, but you just hope that doesn't happen too often until you're more equipped.
Now, Lana, I'm curious if there's anything in your life that you've kind of put this same thing into practice with. So, creating space for something so that you can kind of get your hat head out of the way so that you can move into something else. Is there like a story that you can tell us about something like that in your life that you've put a ritual around, that you've put a rhythm around, that you've made sure that you create space for so that you can be
Mm.
your best?
I could definitely jump to work things and me going out on my own with my own business, but I'm going to talk about my mum because I did say at the start, family is so important to me, and writing my book, which is really about dialing up intentional and meaningful moments. So one thing I didn't do enough of, but I have absolutely honed into is in our sandwich life juggle, we can become very tactical.
Mm.
So we know what we have to do. We've got a checklist. When it comes to your aging loved ones, you're potentially dishing out pills, or you're filling out forms, or you're taking them to appointments. And you think that is connection. And it is a type of connection, but it's not the type of connection that we treasure. And it's not the type of connection you want to remember necessarily. It's a
Mm.
meaningful and deliberate connection. So that is something I've had to give myself space for, just considering how could that be with my mum, especially when I don't necessarily have more time. So I think people can become a little overwhelmed with, yeah, I know I need to do that with mum or dad, whoever it is, but I don't have time this weekend. So again, I'm trying to, and I'm not using that word as much anymore. I am building practices where we use the time that we have together, but we're very intentional with how. And just more planned with it. So
Yeah.
this would be the time that I have with my mum, in particular when we go down to the beach together. So it's usually mum, me, and the two kids. And we absolutely know what we all love down there. So we pretty much make sure we all tick our boxes on things that we most enjoy. We have great conversation because it's very unforced. And I just think a walk along the beach is one of the best ways to have an honest and sometimes, tricky conversations about life things.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's where
I
I
love
would
that.
go.
Do you think, Lana, and I suppose reflecting on your experience as well, that whole I don't have time for that and I'm busy for that, is that just a reflection of how much value we put on something?
Oh, I don't think so. Maybe that's the optimist in me. I think, yeah, I would hate to think that people wouldn't necessarily value the time they could spend with their aging loved one. I just think we get into the burr of life,
Mm.
and uh,
Is it maybe that other things, and I don't know if you've found this, but since I have been working for myself, I've found that a lot of the things that probably used to stress me out
yes,
were totally artificial and didn't really exist. And actually, it was just kind of made up. Not that it wasn't important, but it was just part of the machine. And so I'm wondering if that whole, the blinkers of I need to do this, I must do that, this is more important than that is not a question of I don't want to spend quality time with my family, but I'm caught up in this machine that
yes,
is supposed to keep me busy and focused and thinking only about it. And it's trying to get me to not look any, wow, I've gone into full conspiracy theory now, haven't I? It's like it wants me to just think about it,
yeah.
which means that I'm prioritizing that not intentionally over
Mm.
something else because it is louder.
Yes, louder. I quite like that as a thought. Um, yeah, I think there's absolute truth in a lot of what you've just said there. I think for me in my career, I almost had this notion of, well, that's paying my bills.
Yeah.
That's where I am beholden, and that's where
Mm.
I need to have my focus. Uh, but I am far better at delivery. I'm far better with my outcomes when I have boundaries. And it's not even um, just boundaries of how much time you're going to allocate or how much effort you put into getting your outcomes. It's boundaries around the space to think.
Mm.
And again, I am far better off strategically thinking through things now than I had been in my earlier career.
Yeah.
um, so yeah, I think boundaries are super important. And I firmly think we can do it all. It's a dreadful term because no one is Wonder Woman.
Yeah.
But the only way we can do all the things that are important to us is with the right planning around it and being intentional. Yeah.
Yeah. I
And the
absolutely
and
agree.
doing it all can't be ridiculously doing it all, but doing enough where
Well,
we're,
as I like to say, Lana, everything comes with a price,
yeah,
but it's about paying the price that you want to pay,
yeah,
um, for what it is that you want. And
yeah.
nothing comes for free. And if something seems too good to be true, it probably is. And every other quote in the book,
That's
really,
it.
isn't it?
Yeah, it's almost like throughout life, what are you dialing up and what are you dialing
Yeah.
down? And you make those choices and, you become a mum in the early years and they do, that life becomes slightly more important. And
Yeah.
then they grow up and then you go, I want my career back. Well, this is me.
Yes.
Um, and I can see that happening with aging parents as well. So, but it's being considered in what am I dialing up right now and
Mm.
what am I dialing down? A bit like the hats, I guess, which hat is more important or which hat am I pulling on more regularly? Yeah.
Yeah. And so what if you think about kind of where you are now,
Mm.
because obviously there's been through some changes that you've just kind of hinted at there. What's driving you these days?
Yeah. I love working for myself. I love the variety of it. I'm sure you can resonate. When I left corporate world, I just knew I wanted to know if I could apply my own knowledge broadly, and I wanted great exposure. So I have totally ticked the box on those things, and I've done that through a lot of saying yes. So I've jumped into projects. Um, and I've jumped into industries where I haven't necessarily worked before. I've met amazing people, so I love all of that. It's great, but the most important thing for me right now is a legacy I feel like I can leave in this connection space, and
Mm.
very specifically in the with our aging loved ones, because I've found, and through all of my conversations, it's just not something we talk enough about.
Mm.
The juggle is real and the pain is real, and I think we can do it better. So
Yeah.
that's my big piece at the moment is whilst I'm still running my own business, I want to be able to impact in this other space as well, which is more my passion project.
Well, and it sounds like you've you've had the experience of, losing
Yeah.
a loved one, and maybe you didn't have the connection that you really wanted to have there. So it's like you've had that experience, but actually you can still do that over here. And I love that. I learned that over here, and I'm really being so deliberate about wanting things to be different over here.
Yeah. I forgot to put a page in the front of the book. So here you go for when you write your book, Samantha. In the front of the book, you usually go, I've written this for my beautiful children or whatever
Yes.
it might be. Well,
Yes.
it was meant to say, this book is inspired by my dad, but it's written really for my mum that is still here.
Yeah.
So I think I'd summarize that by saying, yeah, you will have regrets. Regrets are part of life, and
Yes.
we had wonderful connections, Dad and I, but I just wanted more.
Yeah.
So, and I think this is a scenario for lots of people. So, don't beat yourself up about it. Just choose a different path whilst you can, or, if you've got both parents, great, choose the path now. But if you've still got one, then there's, yeah, things that you can do. Yeah.
Which leads to my next question. So for anyone who's listening, who's maybe in a situation where they do want a better connection with a loved one, it doesn't have to be an aged loved one. It just might be a loved one.
Yeah.
What's kind of like your 101 tips for what are the small things you can start doing today
Yes.
to have a better connection?
Oh, um, well, I mean, listening is a very basic one, right? So
How do I
we,
do that?
yes, I know.
Because there's hearing
Yeah.
and there's
Um,
listening.
yes. So maybe the way that I would help someone think through that is I have this framework called Smile. I really like the name of it. But the first part of that, which is the S, it's the seeing of the good
Mm,
and maybe the trickiness. And you can only do that when, again, you slow down a little bit enough to see things.
yeah.
So there's an observing piece in that. Um, I mean, there's the intentional pieces. I I have making moments memorable is another one in the framework. But the last one is E, which is embracing the 1% shifts. And
Mm.
I reckon when you were we were working together way back, we would have had the 1% shifts.
I remember that well.
Yeah. And I loved it back then. So I think that is just such a simple thing to say to people.
Yeah.
Small steps that you build on and that accumulate make a difference. And so in this instance, it's it could be you ring your mum once a fortnight because that's the only time you can have. But actually, if you're driving home from work every Wednesday, maybe that becomes your regular Wednesday, 5 minutes on the phone. They will learn that, oh, Wednesday's the day that Bob's going to call me. I look forward to Wednesdays. And then you build that to, actually, I'm going to continue to ask mum or dad about the gardening or how's the tomato plant going or whatever it might be. So it's the smaller shifts that actually build to something more memorable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that that was something that you referenced a little bit earlier as well, just around, the
Steps.
small things consistently they do accumulate. And I think quite often I think as human beings we want the big bang for minimum effort.
Mhm.
And thinking about making small shifts to bring about small change that's going to take a long time is something that nobody wants.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there's almost like a mindset shift before you even begin to say, this isn't going to change tomorrow,
Mm,
and it's not even going to change next week. And that's
mm.
okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And some people say, oh, we don't have time. Like mum or dad's really sick. They've only got, however long left. So there are other strategies, but I think, yeah, my biggest thing, and I say this to my kids quite regularly, it's the long game. The long game is far more powerful than the short game.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, it is. It absolutely is. So I've got one last question for you, Lana, that I want to ask. What is the most important decision you've ever made, and how did you do it?
Ooh. Uh,
Just a small question.
well, I could say writing my book. Um, because it was a great decision. I'm so pleased with it. I'm going to say going out on my own though. And I know lots of people will resonate with this, really solid corporate background. And with that comes so many things, but definitely stability is a great thing about,
Yes, it is.
being permanently employed. Um, so making that decision and knowing, no, I'm going to give this a crack on my own. I'm going to see how this goes. And I was quite deliberate in how I would start that. So for me, I knew that I wasn't going to be able to just one day be employed and the next day start peddling the streets for who wants me.
Well, you still
Um,
have hat head in the middle, right? But in a
yeah,
different way.
yes. So I took on a contract to go in and do a really sizable demerger work out of one of the big four. And that was great. So what that allowed me to do, and I only signed up for that part-time, um, and that allowed me to have stable income. Another friend of mine calls it your bread and butter income. And then the other days were all about what was my brand? What were the messages I wanted to put out there? I mean, I love LinkedIn. I found LinkedIn very therapeutic for me from a reflection point of view.
Yeah.
Especially at the start, I think I just put anything out there and didn't really worry. Others might say that's ridiculous, but I enjoyed the experience of posting on LinkedIn. Um, and then I was able to, who are the companies that I wanted to work with? Where are the industries that I don't have any experience that I wanted to try and get some contacts in? So I ended up doing that demerger work that it always ends up longer than you realize. So that was 14 months. In the end, I was only 2 days a week and I was able to fill the other time. So that was a big call. 2 kids in private schooling, lots of other things going on in my life. My dad was sick and it was a lot, but super glad.
And I think it's those experiences that we look back on we kind of think, wow, I
Yeah,
did that. I
yeah.
made that. And that worked out okay.
Yes. Yes, you push through and I am proud of myself. It sounds ridiculous, 50-year-old woman go, I'm proud of myself, but I am.
Why?
And exactly
Why?
right.
I'm proud
Yeah.
of you, Lana.
Ah, thanks,
Like
Samantha.
it's a big thing
Mm,
to take everything that you've known
yeah.
and turn it on its head and kind of get to a point where you feel more comfortable with being uncomfortable. Like that's not easy.
Yeah. So no, it's good. Life will always be a challenge. And as I say too, life you never stop learning and I don't want to either.
Never stop learning and never stop connecting.
Yes. Love it.
Yeah, love it. Well, thank you so much for being on the podcast today. Thank you so much for sharing your stories and telling us all about connecting and connecting better with loved ones. I think that's been a really powerful conversation because all of us either have been in that position or will be in that position, and I think it's
Yeah.
important to have that space to think about it.
Love it. That was really good. Thank you. Enjoyed it.
Lana, thank you so much for sharing your stories, your wisdom, and your learnings about connections with other people. What I really loved, which I'll be taking away from this, is that whole idea of pace to create space. I think that's such a simple but really powerful idea that all of us can take away and do something with. So until next time, stay marvelous.